So, on the other side of that, as I said, you don't have to be stuck in your impediments. And part of getting unstuck is what we do every day, Monday through Friday on Daring Dialogues. Part of getting unstuck is knowledge. Part of getting unstuck is educating yourself, right? Part of getting unstuck is creating your own plan for success, and connecting yourself and empowering yourself, and also networking with those who have the same mindset that you do. That you're, again, not waiting on the country to get it together, not waiting on America's governmental system to recognize their wrongs and to right them, but you have the power. The power is within your control to educate yourself, right? The power is within your control to learn, which is what we're doing. Tools of Titans. So this is The Tactics, Routines, and Habits of Billionaires, Icons, and World-Class Performers by Tim Ferriss. Today we're going to look at Marc Andreessen, and we're also going to look at, ironically, I did not plan this, but he has been put in the news by our president. We're going to look at Arnold Schwarzenegger. And so Tim Ferriss, the way that this book is set up, Tools for Titans, Tim Ferriss interviews all of these different business people to kind of find out what works for them in different areas of their life. How have they managed to leverage their knowledge, their wisdom, their understanding in order to become the person that they are today. First person we're looking at is Marc Andreessen. Marc Andreessen is a legendary figure in Silicon Valley, and his creations have changed the world. Even in the epicenter of tech, it's hard to find a more fascinating icon. He co-created for the influential Mosaic browser, and it was the first widely used graphic web browser. Welcome. He then co-founded Netscape. He later sold it to AOL for $4.2 billion. He co-founded LoudCloud, and then he sold it to Hewlett Packard for $1.6 billion. He's considered one of the founding fathers of the modern internet, along with pioneers like Tim Berners-Lee, who launched the Uniform Resource Locator, or URL as most of us know it, or Hyper Transfer Protocol, right? Hypertext Transfer Protocol, or HTTP as most of us know it, and all of the early HTML standards. So this all makes him one of the few humans to ever create software categories used by more than 1 billion people and establish multi-billion-dollar companies at the same time. So do you think we can learn something from Marc Andreessen? Of course we can. All right. So Tim Ferriss asked him a question, and he asked him the question, if you could have a billboard anywhere, what would it say? What would it say? And his answer to his question was raise prices. Somebody type that on the screen if you can. Raise prices. Now, I actually happen to agree with this. Having been in business now for 7 years, he says the number one thing that companies have when they really struggle is because they're not charging enough for their product. Someone asked the question the other day in a business group that I was in. They were like, how do you price your business? How do you price your business? And I said, well, it depends, because I have a product side of my businesses, but I also have a consulting side of my business. So I'm going to price my products at a certain place where they are competitive, because I know the value of what I'm offering. They're competitive prices, but they're not overpriced. So I want to be somewhere right in the middle market, because I want to make sure that my product is affordable, but at the same time, I don't believe in price gouging people, right? I believe in fair market value for whatever you're selling. I said, but on the other hand, on the consulting side, because I value what I have learned. I value what I'm going to share with you. Consulting side, I'm going to price it based on the value of the information that I know that I'm giving you, right? So every year as a business owner, my price may increase because of other things like interest and market inflation and all of those other things. So one of the things he says here is that when companies start out, they're not charging enough for their product. And he said, here's the reason why. It has become conventional wisdom in Silicon Valley that the way to succeed is to price your product as low as possible under the theory that if it's low priced, everybody can buy it. And so that's how you get to volume. And he said, we see over and over again that people fail this way because they get into a problem called too hungry to eat. They don't charge enough for their product to be able to afford the sales and the marketing required to actually get anybody to buy it. So he asked the question, is your product any good if people won't pay more for it? So you have to think about, what are you putting out? Do you have enough confidence in whatever you're putting out that when you price it, it's going to be good enough for people to buy it? Because what will happen is you may not start out with that large volume or that initial volume of people buying into your product, but if your product is good, word of mouth, right, really still works. I tend to listen to the people that I know around me when they give me recommendations about a product and they say, hey, you should really try this. This is really good. I do tend to buy more things based on what my friends are suggesting to me, which is word of mouth. Then I would normally go and just Google products because I'm seeing that product either enrich my friend's life or I'm seeing that product make a difference in the people around me, their life, right? A lot of people ask me about skincare and they say, well, I noticed that you don't wear makeup, and I don't wear makeup. I have some eyebrow pencil on because I don't have any eyebrows. So I don't want to scare anybody. But if I were selling a makeup line, that would be a good buy-in to whatever product I was selling, right? Because my friends always notice my skincare. I don't use a lot of name brand products. I use hydrogen peroxide, I use witch hazel, and I use vitamin E oil. That's it, right? And I have recently started trying black African soap, but I'm going to try out a couple of brands before I make a decision on recommending a brand to someone else. But what he's saying here is very, very key when you are dealing in buying and selling and marketing your products. You've got to be able to charge enough so that you can afford the overhead. You can afford the marketing piece that's going to be required to get other people involved in your product. So don't sell yourself short. Don't sell your product short. That was some great advice. All right. He also says, don't fetishize failure. He said, when I was a founder and I first started out, we didn't have this word called pivot. The word pivot is used a lot now in business. And he said, we just called it a mess up, or he used a curse word, but I'm going to say mess up. We see companies that literally every time we meet them, they're pivoting. Every time you meet this company or every time you meet this business owner, they're off to something new. And it's like watching a rabbit go through a maze. They're never going to converge on anything because they're never going to put the time in to actually figure it out and get it right. Now that is the God honest truth. Let's see. I have been in publishing since 2004. And believe me, You've got to put in the time and you've got to put in the work if you want to learn how to get it right. And one of the things that I do agree here is, if you're a person that wants people to believe in your business, or you want people to invest in your business, then that means every 3 months or every 6 months, when I contact you or when I talk to you or when I ask you what you're doing, you can't be saying, oh, I'm doing something else. This happens a lot of times, I find, with people who operate in network marketing businesses. 1 month they'll be selling tea. The next month they'll be selling coffee. The next month they'll be selling vitamins. The next month they may be selling cleaning products. And I'm just like, can you find a niche as they say? Can you find that and stick with it? Can you find what you want to start your business in and begin to work at it? Because as he said, if you're constantly changing what you're trying to get into business to do, and you don't really have a clear direction, then people really aren't going to take you very seriously. They're just going to think, man, this person is just trying to find whatever they can get their hands on to do, as opposed to you choosing a subject matter that you're passionate about. It could be a health brand, right? You could be passionate about your health. You could be passionate about losing weight. You could be passionate about teaching people how to better maintain their bodies. Stick with it. Stick with it. Maybe you need to try a different health brand company. But again, as he said, when you change so often, when you pivot so often, people tend to think that you're not going to be serious. And so they might not really listen to you. They might tune you out. They might have wanted to invest in what you were doing, but every time they talk to you, you're doing something else. All right. So that is a good tip for business. He has another tip here called stress testing ideas with a red team. Stress testing ideas with a red team. And the idea is, when you want to pitch an idea and you're working in a team setting and you want to pitch an idea, they create a team of people who are going to argue the other side of whatever you're trying to pitch, so that if you can get past the stress team, if you can get past all of the questions that this team is going to have for you on whatever idea you're trying to pitch to your company, if you can get past it, then they will commit to whatever the product is. This is actually good for a number of different arenas, not just business, but just in life in general. If you are in the ministry, this is good for ministry ideas. If you're trying to launch something within a ministry context, you need a red team. You need people that are going to challenge your ideas. You need people that are going to challenge the success of what you're trying to put out. You need to have people in your life that are going to challenge the validity of what you're putting out. And you need people in your life who are going to challenge the necessity of what you're putting out. Do we even need this? Like, do we need another toaster? Like, do we need to invent another toaster? Do we need another refrigerator? Right? So you want people that are going to test your ideas under stress. They're going to question what it is that you want to launch. And as he said, if you manage to move through that process, then everybody at the table will be all in to whatever you're trying to launch. But you have to pass a stress test. So I thought that was very good. He has a phrase that he utilizes called strong views but loosely held. Strong views but loosely held. And he was asked to explain it. He says, most people go through life and never develop strong views, welcome, on things, or they specifically go along and buy into the consensus. One of the things I think you want to look for as both a founder and as an investor is things that are out of consensus, something very much opposed to conventional wisdom. If you start a company around that, you have a strong conviction, and you should have a strong conviction, because you're making a very big bet of time or money or both. But what happens when the world changes? What happens when something else happens? That's where the loosely held piece comes in. People everywhere hate changing their minds, but you need to be able to adapt in light of new information. I'll say that again. You need to be able to adapt in light of new information. New information. Many of my friends will fight you tooth and nail over a topic, perhaps making dinner company nervously glance around as you cite better information or better logic. Though they will concede and say, "You're totally right, I never thought about that." So that quote there, strong views loosely held. I'm confident in what I know, but I'm going to hold it loose enough that as I get new information, I'm able to adjust and to adapt my thought process. And this is necessary, especially in business these days, because things are changing so rapidly. Especially if you work in the field of science, you work in the field of the arts, you work in the field of technology, you may have strong views. You may have strong views, but you better hold them loosely. Because if not, you're going to find yourself in a place of old technology, right? An old